Hello, hello, hello. Think I'm live. Welcome everybody to the last live stream of 2020. It's hard to believe, but the time has come. Yeah, welcome everybody. Standard disclaimers, if you are watching this on replay, I usually need roughly sorry, looking at the cats. I need roughly 12 to 24 hours to adjust the monetization because it gets a little wonky and to add anything in the descriptions, etc. So be forewarned. Yeah, we'll just say hello to everybody who's here. Hey guys, hello to California. Good evening. Hello. Hello. Yes, just for this year. I mentioned this on Instagram, but I have gotten word officially that I will be working remotely through the end of next year at this point. So they are going to keep us on remote work through all of 2021. So live streams will continue next year on Tuesday nights, but this is the last one for 2020 because I have so many end of the year lists coming out that just need the time to post them all, so without totally flooding your feed. So last one for this year. I may do one on New Year's Day. I'm trying to decide, but yeah, we'll pick back up in 2021. Hello. Hello. Hello to Sweden. Wow. Hello. Hi. Oh, yeah, it's late in the UK. Hello to Alaska. Hello to Scotland. Hello, everyone. Oh, I'm so glad. So you can see Marple investigating the bookcases back there. So this evening, I thought we could talk about how to set goals, how to set bookish goals. Because, you know, it's the end of the year. It's when I start thinking about my goals for the next year. See, she's very interested in Wolf Hall tonight. That's what she's thinking about reading next. Yeah, when at the end of the year is when I start thinking about my kind of next year goals, and we'll talk about, like, if you don't want to set goals for reading, that's also fine. We'll get into that whole thing. Originally, what I was going to do was talk in this stream about how to read more diversely, or kind of like how to set goals about reading diversely, because I think I've talked about it on here before, like, I struggle with that topic because I'm like, I don't actually think it's all that hard to do, but I get it so often that I know it must be a genuine question. But luckily, right when I was planning that for this evening, I got a message from Bethany and Ashley letting me know that they were planning on doing a panel on Ashley's channel, which is the Bookish Realm, on Thursday night. So that is going to be like a practical example of goal setting. So I very, very much encourage you, if you are at all, if you're in the stream and it's at all on your radar to try to read more diversely, I definitely encourage folks to come to that panel. That will be this Thursday night, I believe at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 my time, on the Bookish Realms channel. So that's going to be like a practical, like, full panel of an example about setting a bookish goal. So yeah, so that's a little PSA there. Also, let me set my timer because I am real tired today. So I'm gonna keep this to an hour because otherwise, it's just gonna be no fun for anyone when I get totally incoherent. So let me get that going. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad that you enjoy them. I love making end of the year lists. So I'm glad some of you like them because that's like my favorite thing to do. Hey to Texas. Yes, we've got some kitty cat bombing in the background. Another Texas. Yeah, there's a lot of different approaches to goals, and maybe, like, in a second I'll just get into the fact that, like, I get that goals are not for everyone. Exactly. Cats and books. That's my, core content here. Yeah, I think that's a really good strategy. Actually, we'll talk about that. Baby steps. Yeah, it is hard as a mood reader, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Yes, they have quite effete tastes here. Hello, hello. Cats pick my TBR. Oh, wow. I don't know how to like get them to look at the shelf when I want them to. I feel like they only go over there when I'm not trying to get them to do that. So, but maybe. We can definitely talk about strategies if you are not much of a goal person. Okay, good to know. Yeah, she was showing me the thumbnail. So you can definitely set a reminder, and I very much encourage everyone to go over there and watch, not just because I'm going to be on there, but because I think it's a great group and I think it'll be a good discussion and will give a genuine answer to if you are genuinely trying to read more diversely and are a little bit at a loss. Okay, we can talk about that. We're 300 books a year plus having a job and a life. Were you always a fast reader? Did you ever work to be able to read faster? I do have a whole video about how, like, advice about how I got to the reading speed I'm at. Some of it is just like, I've been reading my whole life, so I think that has helped. Like, I've always been a big reader, so I think some of this is like getting miles under your belt kind of a thing. In grad school, I had to read a tremendous number of books very quickly, so it was honestly kind of sink or swim. So that greatly, because I was having to get through very dense books at a pretty good clip, it raised my overall reading speed quite a bit, because things that are not, like philosophy are a lot easier to read once you've gotten used to reading your normal reading speed for that kind of book. So it's like anything that's not that, my reading speed went up a lot, basically. Reading goals. Oh, nice. And yeah, I think this is definitely open discussion for if people have tips. So yeah, if I put a treat by each book, I don't know. Yeah, but maybe I could do that. I could entice them over to that bookcase. I hope you can make it. Yes, they do enjoy sniffing and chewing on books when they can. Oh, thank you. Yes, I've got my Christmas nails on today. There was a virtual office Christmas party, so I was trying to be festive. Okay, so goal setting. First of all, I want to acknowledge that for many, many people, setting goals with something that has to do with your hobby is not appealing to you. You think that that makes it seem like work. You think that that does not sound like fun. You don't understand why other people do it. That is completely fine, valid. And as long as you're not shitting on other people for wanting to do it, I think that that's totally fine. This is not me trying to persuade someone who does not think setting goals for reading makes any sense. I'm not trying to persuade someone who doesn't want to do that to do it. So this is sort of a live and let live. If you don't like doing it, that's fine. There's those of us who enjoy setting goals. So, just different strokes for different folks. Totally fine if this is not your thing. This is aimed at people who would like to be able to set some goals, or who would like to be able to bring some more structure into their reading. And I say that as somebody who is naturally very much a mood reader, but who is also a type, an Enneagram 1, Virgo moon, who enjoys the thrill of following a plan. Also, I'm a Sagittarius rising, and the little thing there is you see the goal, you reach the goal, and then you see another. So I'm always getting, I enjoy goals. They're fun. The bottom line though is all of these are for fun. So you shouldn't be taking these goals as seriously as I hope you take, in 2021, you want to get this professional certification or whatever. It's not that deep. So just a clarification in terms of goals are not for everyone. The enjoyment I get from goals is that I am a mood reader, but I have found over the years that if I only mood read, I actually can end up slumping, getting myself into a slump accidentally, because I am I can become very fixated on one thing, and then I burn myself out on it. So, I did my Ice Planet Barbarian read through, if I had done that and then didn't have anything else to sort of break it up or to move on to afterwards, I probably would have, like, before I started setting goals, like reading goals, I probably would have just like languished in the kind of book hangover from that binge. So for me, I am a mood reader, but having some level of goals, and this has been kind of a trial and error thing for me over the years, helps me keep momentum in my mood reading. Getting back to when somebody was asking how I read so many books, I honestly think the variety of books that I read and the fact that I have like overall goals I'm working towards, and I'm somebody who I respond well to like gamification of things. So having goals that I'm working towards motivates me to keep, you know, kind of moving with my reading. So those are just sort of some table setting things. My main goal is to have more mini book clubs over Zoom with my family. That is a lovely goal. And I think, yeah, that gets into one genre of goals that I'm making a note for myself I wanted to make sure I covered, which is sort of like communal goals, because I think that can be fun for readers if you are of the mind. And if you're on BookTube, if you're watching BookTube content, if you're in a live stream for a BookTube channel, I assume you have some level of communal engagement that you enjoy with your reading. I'm a mood reader. I get a book I'm feeling about but want to read, and something I'm in the mood for in the same stack, so I have options. Yeah, that's gonna be one of my biggest tips for people who are mood readers, is to give yourself goals where you have a lot of flexibility. Yeah, this is a great point. Like I was saying, you know, not curing cancer with our book reading, like this is a hobby, it's for fun. It's not that deep, so. I typically set at 12, then when I reach 12, I raise it 12 more, and so on. Oh, I like that approach. So sort of just like an incremental throughout the year goal setting. Yes, Sagittarius unite. Woo, we got the Sag? I never know, is it Sag? Sages in the chat. 120, go for it. Not to pressure. Yeah, I think a lot of my time with goal setting in the last like 5 or 6 years with books has been a lot about me kind of finding the right balance of structure versus looseness. Because again, if it starts feeling like pressure, it's just not fun. Yeah. Yeah, and this is, okay, maybe this is a good place to introduce one of the kind of categorizations that I think is helpful when you're thinking about what kind of goals you want to set. Are you setting a quantitative goal or are you setting a qualitative goal? And I think that a good kind of goal list has a little bit of both, or it can't. I guess for me, all this is from my perspective. For me, I have found it is helpful to have a little bit of both. So for instance, when I'm looking forward into 2021, one of the goals that I've kind of coalesced around is I would like to read through more of the series I have going. And maybe should we maybe even talk about like how to even arrive at possible goals that might be interesting to you? I start thinking about my next year's goals in sort of the fourth quarter of the previous year. And things I'm looking at are things like, how many books came onto my physical TBR this year? Like, do I have a lot more of them than I had last year? And do I want to try to put some effort in reading down in that? Was I happy with how this year's reading has gone in terms of genre balance, in terms of how difficult, like kind of the mix of heavy and light reading has gone, how many challenges I had going? I kind of do like sort of a post-mortem towards the end of the year. And from that, I come up with some sort of like conceptual goals, like kind of big goal. And then I kind of work down from that goal into smaller, more achievable bites. So one of the big goals, or like conceptually, one of the things that I was looking at this year was like, I really feel like I feel, this is sort of like a qualitative thing. I feel like I have a lot of series going, and I feel like in 2020, I didn't make progress on reading through a lot of the series that I already have on my physical TBR, and just generally that I've, started but not finished. So that's sort of the bigger picture of like, okay, I see this about my 2020 reading. the goal I'm going to set is to make more progress on those series. And then in terms of a more quantitative goal coming out of that qualitative goal is, okay, I'm going to pick for my 21 books I want to read in 2021, I'm going to make all of them be series books so that I know as a part of my planning for next year, I'm going to make, a bite of progress in all of the physical books that I have in series that I'm wanting to read. So I think all that to say, I think you could stop potentially at this concept of reading more of something. I will say, and one of my number one tips in general, if any of your goals are focused on read more of this, read less of this, whatever, I do think a good place to start is tracking. I think this is especially true for things like what we're going to talk about on Thursday, which is how to read more diversely. Because if you are not, basically there's all these studies about this, we are not as humans always that great at quantifying how we're doing on something relative to reality. So for instance, if you ask people how good of a driver they are, I forget what percentage of it is, but 70 or 80% of people will say that they are an above average driver. Okay, well, definitionally that many people cannot be above average, right? So if part of what you are trying to do is put numbers to something, I do think that there is value in having a baseline. It doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, if you've seen any of my spreadsheet videos, you know that I geek out on this stuff. I love it. It does not have to be that elaborate by a long shot. I think you literally could have a list of books and then whatever it is you're trying to track about them, either on Goodreads or Storygraph, I think that's a new one, or in a spreadsheet, whatever. It doesn't have to be fancy, but if you are actually if it's a goal you're genuinely trying to meet and not just, I don't know how to, I'm not trying to make this sound like you have to commit to your goals. That is my propensity. I just mean if it's not, I just want to feel like I read more of this, but rather I want to know that I read more of this. I do think that some level of a baseline or tracking can be helpful. So I think it's helpful, all that to say, where I was going with this is having some kind of clarification or classification in your head of, is this a quantitative goal? Is this a qualitative goal? And how, if I'm wanting to move from qualitative to quantitative, what is my plan to be able to actually measure that? Yeah, I only want to set goals because I want to read more books. And again, I find having goals does personally motivate me to read more, because I am such a sucker for gamification, basically, because I'm a rule follower and I'm I want to get the shiny prize. Even if the shiny prize is only just in my own head, if I set up a shiny prize mentally for me, I'm enough of a, child that I will still go after it ruthlessly. I think I want to try more long-term goals. I think my mood reading can make short-term goals, readathons, more stressful. Yeah, and I want to say, I'm not going to say that if you're a mood reader, readathons are impossible, but I do think that the huge focus within BookTube on readathons over short periods of time can really not be ideal for mood readers. And I've seen so many people, myself included, basically get put into a slump from trying to read a week-long readathon. So one suggestion I would have is, if you are a true blue mood reader, you are mood all the way, I think that either picking something that is pretty vague in its kind of parameters, so something like a nonfiction November, where it's an entire month long. That's the other tip I have, is picking ones that are not just a week long, but pick ones that are a longer period of time, or even over the course of a year. But nonfiction November, the only real rules to it are to read more nonfiction than you normally do. So you can read any kind of nonfiction you want, so it's got very loose parameters. Or something like Tome Topple, which is still, it's a little shorter period of time. It's usually 2 weeks, but again, it's pretty loose in its rules, and you have a lot of freedom to kind of pick what you want from it. So I think I think readathons can be if you're trying to like test the waters to see if you can set a TBR and stick with it over a short period of time, those week-long readathons can be good. But I think sometimes, try it, and if it's not working for you, just try to respect that about your own reading habits, basically. Like, I think trying to force yourself to be somebody who can read, this very specific type of book in 1 week, like it's just not for everyone. And I think it can slump you if it's just not for you. Book clubs and buddy reads. Yeah, that was another thing I was going to mention with the communal aspect. So I think if there are specific books that you want to read, finding either a book club that's happening, if somebody is hosting a buddy read or a readathon for that book on BookTube, or just getting one of your friends to read it with you, that can be a great way to have like accountability, and it's just more fun because you have somebody to talk about the books with. That Ice Planet Barbarian video is one of the most impressive BookTube videos I've ever seen. Well, I gave it got my full heart and soul. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I've only ever set my goals to 12 books per year, and I've read 143 books this year. Congratulations. Quarantine reading. Woo. Yeah, the gamification thing, I think if you are somebody, even if you are a mood reader, if you know about yourself that gamification can work for you, I think there are ways to trick your monkey brain into being excited about getting the prize to help you make some progress. Goals for me is only about habits. I need to push to get into ebooks and audiobooks, and setting concrete low goals help me do that. And now I read them all the time. I did the same with some genres. Yeah. Charlotte, that was another thing I wanted to talk about, was incremental goals. If we're talking about long-term reading changes, I think setting yearly incremental goals is a really sustainable, achievable way to do that. I will talk specifically about that with Reading Diversely on Thursday, because that was one of the biggest, like, notable ones that I've been working towards over the last few years. But I will just give you a preview of that and say, my goal for next year is going to be what I was trying to work towards since 2017, which was I wanted to get to the point where I was as likely as not to be reading a book by or about somebody who was not like me. So to get to like 50% of that. And I have been working year over year to increase that by 5 to 10%. And so I think that that's going to be pretty achievable for me next year, because I'm not too far off from that now. So I think if you're wanting to try a new genre, don't commit to reading only that genre for the next year, because I think that's a way to, unless you just find that you're absolutely loving it, I think that can be a recipe for getting really burnt out on it and be counterproductive to what you're trying to do. So like, if you normally read 20 books a year and you're wanting to try a new genre, maybe commit to reading 3 books in that new genre, and then everything else kind of your normal mix of genres. So yeah, I think starting like, What About Bob, where he talks about baby steps, I do think that there's a lot of wisdom in just like baby stepping into a bigger long-term sustainable plan if you are trying to change a habit, or if you're trying to get into something for the first time. I'm the same. I tend to binge read historical romances, but then I overdo it and start to slump and dislike every book in the genre I pick up. Yeah, that is something I'm very prone to do if I'm not conscious about it. That is frankly part of why I read so many different genres, because it keeps me from getting burnt out on any one of them, because it just kind of keeps me on my toes, and I don't feel like I get kind of just in a rut with things, which was something I was finding myself doing a lot of right after grad school in particular. So BookTube actually really helped me kind of get out of that habit. I try to do at least 1 book a week. It helps me balance out playing video games and doing other things. Yeah. And I think that's one of the notes I had here was eat your veggies goals versus mom day out goals. So I think that some of the goals we set, kind of like what Frostbite Gaming is saying, is, hey, like, as a person, it's a priority for me to have forms of entertainment that are not just playing video games in this case, I want to also make sure that I'm reading. So to that end, my goal is to make sure I'm reading 1 book a week. So like that's sort of what I would call an eat your veggies goal of like something that is sort of core to like your values as a person, or kind of like how you want to live your life, like something that's, you know, a part of your just sort of hygiene of living versus what I call mom day out goals are like, you know what, I'm going to treat myself. I want to have fun. So maybe like a goal, I think a great goal would be, I have been meaning to read this author's whole backlist. I've been meaning to do that for years, and I always just sort of put it off because I feel like I don't have time or whatever. Well, like, I think that would be a great goal for someone to just say, you know what? 2020 has been a dumpster fire, and in 2021, I'm going to treat myself, and that's what I'm going to read. That's going to be my project for the year, is just to read all of these books from an author that I love. So I think kind of having some awareness of that, and kind of the spirit with which you are approaching a goal, if it's something that is sort of a little more on the eat your veggie side, you might treat that with a different kind of mental weight than something that's more like treat yourself. So I think that that's also a good distinction to have when you're setting a goal of like, what am I trying to do with this goal? Yes, woohoo for Lydia. That is awesome. Honestly, I know I read a lot, guys, and I get comments of like, I can never read that much. And like, I always want to make it so clear. I'm a weirdo who like doesn't really watch TV. And right now I'm immunocompromised and like stuck at home. So like I have lots of time to read, and you know, I don't have kids. Like I have a lot of time to read. Most people do not read even 1 book a year. Anybody who is reading any books a year, I genuinely think that's awesome. Like that makes me happy. And yeah, so like I get like the gamification part of me is like, woohoo, way to get your goal. But also I just want to make sure everyone knows like however many books you're reading a year, like is great. I told myself I could read the first 10 in Ice Planet Barbarians and then switch to a more niche nonfiction book before I came back to them. Yeah, it's kind of like when you're studying and you let yourself have like a starburst once you finished summarizing a chapter or something. It's like, you know, little reward system. Yeah, for me, gamification has been really big to making goals fun, and not just like a weight. I keep track of how many pages I read each week so I can see my progress over the year. It feels good to see that I'm on track with my reading goals, and that's helped me quite a bit. Yeah, I think that's another way that you can, that's actually a great way to measure reading progress in terms of not always just thinking about it in numbers of books, but also in just total pages read. I can only read 1 book at a time. I'd like to set a goal to at least read 2 books at a time each month. That's a great goal. I don't know if you're open to audiobooks, Michael, but I think that would be a great way to dip your toes into that because it's engaging different parts of your brain. So I find I can have a physical book, an ebook, and an audiobook going at any one time because I just am like processing them a little bit differently. So I don't know, that might be a way to think about trying to tackle that. I said it at 15 this year, and right now I'm on book 70. Congratulations. Yeah, I think 2020 gave a lot of people quarantine reading time. I pushed my boundaries with different genres this year. Still not sure how to choose nonfiction where it's not heavily biased. I guess I would wonder what you mean by heavily biased, because like all nonfiction is coming from a perspective. It's more, to me, it's just like, does the author have awareness of that perspective? And do you as the reader, are you clear on it? But like, all nonfiction is going to have some kind of bias, unless it's like kind of a dry, like textbook kind of thing. So I don't know if that helps at all. My goal for 2021 will be centered on reading the things I already own, which gives me lots of choices and hopefully allows me to diminish the number of books I have stacked around. Yeah, this is to me a great qualitative goal. And I think this is the kind of goal that I think is really good for mood readers who are looking to have a little more structure, is to pick something that has a lot of different ways that it can be satisfied. So the mood reader in you can really kind of go to town. I read 98 books this year. That's great. Most of them were audiobooks. Next year, I want to read more physical and ebooks. Yeah, that's another, what I would call like, kind kind of qualitative goal that could, I think it could translate into quantitative if you want to keep track of it. But even just having, I think sometimes even just having an awareness of something you want to do more of is the right first step to moving in that direction, because it sort of just puts it on your radar, makes you more aware of it. Hello. I have so many partially finished series. I definitely want to either knock them out or knock them off the list. Yeah. Yeah, I probably should go through at some point and do like a reckoning of if there's any books and any series in theory I wanted to start, but I actually don't know if I'll ever get to it. I want to finish at least one series a month. Yeah, that's a great, again, like that's the kind of goal that I think would be great for a mood reader, because it's pretty broad. You can, kind of pick what series is on your that you're kind of in the mood for in a given month. I'm definitely decreasing my number of books goals in favor of a lot of bigger books, more pages, and rather than just mini books. Yeah, that's the second time this has come up. I think that's, yeah, I really like that as a goal. I tried to do this one year and failed. And I don't think if I'm quarantining still next year, that will be achievable, but maybe in 2022, I'll put some of my big kind of door stoppers on my TBR. There you go. Let's see here. This is the first year I'm setting reading goals, and I'm pretty excited. I think they're just going to live in my brain, so I'm not beholden to them though. Yeah, and I think that could be a good way to sort of just like test the waters with it of, how does it feel to try to adhere to some kind of goal planning? I'm going to focus on reading books I physically own, yep, and not buying a lot more, as well as continuing to try to read more diversely and tracking that. I think that's great. Yeah, I wanted to use this year for my physical TBR as sort of a test of like how much I was adding to it without consciously trying to buy more or less books. And I found that I'm almost exactly at the same number of books I was last year. So to me, that's another thing that was helpful, like just to get sort of a gauge of that, of I think I'm pretty happy right now with the balance of books coming in versus the balance of books going out the door. So, that may change next year, but for now, I'm like, pretty happy with that balance. Storygraph is a new, like social media book app kind of thing. Actually, my friend Joshana, I believe she posted a video about how to use Storygraph today, which I have not yet watched, but I'm definitely going to go check it out. I'm thinking I may try it for 2021. I don't know. It would be adding yet another place for me to track my reading, which I don't know that I need, but I kind of want. I don't know. I do love a spreadsheet. You are what you measure. Yeah, I think, again, if you're trying to get kind of more like intense about your goals, I do think that quantifying it in some way, at least for me, made a very big difference once I started doing that. Yeah, and I think that if you're wanting to, if you've never tracked before, just starting to track could be a great goal for this year. How do I create and keep track of my spreadsheets? I have a whole video about that, so I'll refer you there. I used, in that video in the description, I have the spreadsheet I used as the basis for what I ended up creating and kind of riffing off for myself. I find the updating of my spreadsheets, my reading spreadsheets, to be very soothing. In the mornings before I start my day, kind of a thing, I go in and make the updates to my spreadsheet and then start writing my Goodreads review. Kind of the equivalent of the way I think some people like read the news while they sip their coffee. That's kind of like my morning routine. So I enjoy it because I'm a nerd. But I know that's not for everyone. And some people are going to be much less anal retentive about their spreadsheets. I use a color coding calculating spreadsheet to fulfill my geeky heart's need to understand who and what I am reading. Well, Elizabeth, I'm right there with you. That sounds like an absolute delight. I want to create a book database considering Airtable. I have not used that. Yep. Let's see here. I always start spreadsheets and usually give up about March. I read way too many books and it takes ages. Yeah, it definitely takes time. And like I said, for me, I find it to be a very soothing morning routine, but I know that's not for everyone. Nice. Yeah. Let's see. I can do a month-long readathon and not a week. It doesn't work for me, like you just mentioned. The shelf space, reindeer games, I'm doing well, and Gavin's Believeathon worked for me. Yeah, I think if you are somebody who has gotten burnt out from doing week-long readathons, I really encourage you to find ones that are either, I think year-long would be best. Well, that's one of I will say, let me pause there and say, I think one thing I found is that I'm not going to say struggle, but I'm going to try to be more thoughtful about not setting year-long challenges for myself so lightly, just because so much can happen in a year. And I think if 2019 Mara had known how 2020 was going to go, I would not have set the goals I set for myself. And I think in the summer, I had sort of this moment of like, oh my gosh, I just have to let some of the goals I had for this year go, which is such a small thing in the scheme of things. But like in my brain, it was hard because like once I commit to something, I do it. So it was hard for me to let that go. So I will just give the caveat of, especially because we really don't know what 2021 is going to look like, maybe for 2021, be cautious about setting year-long goals because like, girl, we don't even know what's going to happen. But conceptually, I think a little longer readathons can be a good friend for mood readers. Erin's library on BookTube for her newest video on goals. She keeps things pretty vague, and that's what I do too as a mood reader. Okay, great. There's a resource for people. As a mood reader, I found the R Fantasy Book Bingo to be great. Year-long goal, lots of community engagement, no pressure. It's been awesome for me this year. Yeah, and there are things like the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge. One of my good friends does that every year. Reading Women gals, they have a year-long readathon. So yeah, there's like tons of different kind of like, or the Book Riot, Read Harder, they do that, like where there's a bunch of different prompts that can be interpreted a lot of different ways. I think that can be a good way to ease into goals. Spreading the good news of the Ice Planet Barbarians. I'm so glad. Gamification is basically if you make a task have like the feeling of a video of like a reward system, so that feels like a game. So sort of the way like to get your kids to do their chores, you'll like put a chart up and have them like they get a sticker whenever they do something, and so like you feel like you're getting something when you accomplish something that you maybe don't want to do, and it's a way to like tap into our lizard brains desire to win and desire to be on top of things. So it's something that a lot of social media uses to keep you addicted and scrolling, but you can harness it for good if you're aware of it. Hello, Ashley. Welcome. As we were just talking about earlier, Ashley is hosting the panel on Thursday, so get excited. Let's see here. Another Ice Planet Barbarian person. Yes, we'll see Ashley on Thursday for sure. Yes. Yes, I am. I really want everyone to go. I think it's going to be a really good panel, so I hope everybody will come on Thursday. Also, I'm on World Hoppers tomorrow night. You guys are getting a lot of me this week. I hope you're okay with that. Yes, I think it's going to be great. Yes, setting yearly incremental goals is what worked for me. I used to read only YA fantasy, and over the course of 3 years, I did purposeful genre exploration. Now I'm pretty omnivoracious. Yeah, I think one suggestion I have for people who are trying to try a new genre is to either look up, well, to generally look up sort of like lists and suggestions of like where to start with, but also if you know your existing genre preferences, start by trying to map those into the genre you're trying to get into. So for instance, if you're a big mystery reader and you want to get into fantasy, I would suggest looking up lists of like mystery set in Ye Magically world, because it's going to give you the same kind of plot you're used to, just with some fantasy kind of conventions thrown in. And I think that's a good way to sort of ease into a new genre. Yeah, I think the Buzz Wordathon sounds like fun. I may try to pick 1 month and participate in that because it seems pretty fun. Yes, we're also excited. Oh, where are we? Okay. I'm currently at 295 books for a year. Congrats. 80 of those are rereads. Hey, I love a reread. Rereads are so comforting and lovely and wonderful. I always feel guilty when I don't get to my unread books. Yeah, that's something I struggle with of like, I really, there's no guilt in reading. I feel like when people talk about guilty pleasures, I get so worked up. I'm like, why should you feel guilty for having pleasure over something like reading? Like, of all things to feel guilty about, it surely should not be over reading. But I do feel, sometimes I feel the weight of that bookshelf just like looking at me and judging me. And I'm like, I know I just bought new books. I'm sorry. I promise I'll get to you eventually. So the guilt is real. For 2020, I want to try to catch up to BookTube and read some of the popular SFF series that most others have read. That's a really fun goal. My BookTube goal for 2020 or for 2021 is to get better about remembering to comment on people's videos when I'm watching them, because I am so bad at that, and I'm trying to get better. So that's my BookTube goal for the year. I never used to read books at all. I only really got into it a few years ago. My goal for this year is 32, and I'm nearly there. Go Alice. I think that's awesome. Yeah, having the different kinds of books going, I do think is a really good way if you're trying to get used to reading more than one book at once. I think that's a good way to do it. I like to read a bigger nonfiction and something a little shorter and easier at the same time and dip more in and out of the nonfiction. Yeah, and I used to do that a lot more. That's what I was doing for Nonfiction November, and that's how I got through so many darn books that month. And also I just forgot how much I like that. So that was another sort of like qualitative goal I have for 2021, is to lean into that more of like having that heavy, being more purposeful about having the light and heavy mix. Because I think instinctually I tend to have a lot of palate cleansers in between my bigger books, but like doing that a little more intentionally, I forgot how much I enjoyed setting that as the pace of my reading. Yeah, setting a little bit of time each day to read, even if it's only for 15 minutes, for sure. Oh, that's awesome. More nonfiction this year than I've ever had before in my life. Continuing that trend is definitely a goal of mine. That's awesome. I love nonfiction. I've read 360 books this year, but I didn't do anything else except stay home and read books. I feel ya. Hey, you're going to get to one a day. That's awesome. Yeah, different formats. Yes. Hello to Shade Tree Reads. Same with reading things I actually own. Osmosis reading isn't actually a thing, right? It's like, but I have you, so like, that means I've read you, right? Surely it's the same thing. Buying a book is the same thing as reading it. Clear about their biases. That way I can be aware of the bias more when reading. Yeah. One of my goals this year was to read more classics. Any tip for getting through hard to read classics faster? I don't have a lot of tips about getting through classics fast, because that's one of the reads that really takes me, like, to me, that is purposeful slow reading, which is part of why I like having classics in the mix for me, because that tends to be one of that and some of the sort of like weightier nonfiction I read. Part of what I'm reading them for is to slow my brain down and like really kind of dig into it or like seep in it. So yeah, I don't really have tips about how to read hard to read classics faster, more just like perseverance and solidarity. I hadn't heard of BookTube, but one day I searched for good fiction books and landed on your page. I would like to read a variety of books in 2021 so I can better recommend books. That's a great goal. Yeah, there's so many great genres out there, and there's so many different, I mean, I'm an omnivore. I tend to read a little bit of everything, but there's tons of dedicated genre channels, so you can get a lot of dedicated content for different genres if you're looking for it. I would like to read at least one book on my TBR shelf each month. I have a book I take to work and will read it for 30 minutes, and then I have a different book in the evening to read that I will read for at least 2 hours. Yeah, that can be another way if you're trying to read more than one book at once, to kind of segregate your reading time. More tomes this year. That's a great goal. Yeah. This might be a bit intense. I mean, you're talking to me. I keep track of the word count of books I've read. I've gotten this data for 79 of 82 books I've read this year, and it's amazing. Yeah. One of my goals this year is to have been reading my physical TBR. I've read 170 books. It's under 80 books. That's awesome. Finish all physical books, then buy a new e-reader to stop the clutter. Woo, that's an intense goal. More power to you. Yeah, I've heard good things about Storygraph. Thank you so much, Key Reads. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. I started tracking my reading more this year, and that has helped my reading. Yeah, for me, I find tracking really helpful, and like it gives me momentum to keep going, but I know that's not true for everyone. This year, I'm going to use my library more and have been really good about it. Now I want to focus on buying more from indie bookstores. That is awesome. Library ebook app is 100% a lifesaver. I am so thankful for the library. Hello to Adrian. Hello. Started a spreadsheet with a TBR tab that shows if the book is available at my library on Overdrive, Scribd, or Hoopla, and in what format, and of course, if I own a copy. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely recommend the, there's a library extension you can put on Chrome, and it will show you if it's available in any of those places. So I always check that before I buy a book. Sometimes I still buy it if it's available in one of those places, but at least then it's an informed purchase. Yeah. I hate trying to put a reread on Goodreads. Yeah. My husband got me a scratch off poster of 100 books to read. Oh, I've seen those. Those are really cool. I scratched off 78 books. I can't make myself read the rest. My goal this year is to read books that I want. Cosign. That sounds great. Oh, hello to Melbourne. Okay, I feel better, Ashley. I'm so bad at I feel so guilty because I know it's really important for engagement. And also, like, I often want to be like, oh, this is what I thought about this. But then I just forget, and I'm a bad BookTube community member. It's a struggle. We all just have our huge TBR piles that are judging us. Silent subscriber. I watch all of someone's videos, but I never know what to say in a comment. I want to read more from my own shelves instead of getting all my books from the library. I have over 400 books in my own library I want to read. Yeah, I feel that. If I read two at the same time, they're two vastly different genres. That's another great tip, is just to make them very different books. Erica, right now I read religious writings by Leo Tolstoy and a paranormal romance book. Exactly. That's honestly, like, that's a great reading night to me. Like, you know, read a little bit of vampire, sexy times, and then some musings from a 19th century Russian writer. My year in books is just up. I read 367 books with an average of 406 pages. Woo, Danielle, that is impressive. That is impressive. I added 30-minute reading sprints to my advent calendar, set up a fun things to do in December. That is such a fun idea. I love that. Nice. For me, I was able to get through some of the harder classics with audiobooks. Sorry. Les Mis is great, but it has many boring tangents that don't have much to do with the plot, and the audio helped out a lot. There you go. I'd like to be more mindful of my reading. I tend to inhale read most of my books, and I can't remember most of it. Yeah, that was something I talked about a couple of years ago, and I don't know if I've done a great job of meeting that goal, but I definitely know what you mean. And I think because I tend to, like, how to say it? I think I read a lot of books, but it's not like everything I'm reading is like high art, and a lot of it is kind of forgettable to me. Like, I'm not necessarily reading it because it's going to be something that really sticks with me. It's just sort of like a fun way to pass the evening. So yeah, I've tried to get a little bit better about that in recent years, of not having as much of my reading being weighted that way, but I don't know. I don't think 2020 was the year to make that a goal, nor is 2021. But maybe, I don't know. We'll see how I'm feeling at the end of 2021. Yeah. Some classics are easier for me to get through on audiobook because they were often read aloud and it helps me with the dense parts. Yeah, I think that that's a great tip. Yeah, I do. I enjoy keeping track of my word count because I like the little graph of it that I have. Oh, yeah. Thank God for Libby Overdrive. I use a spreadsheet that the hardback hoarder made. There you go. And I'm obsessed with looking at all the little charts that it makes about my reading. I share that obsession. My 2020 reading has been a typical AF, going to have to really think about next year's goals. Yeah, I mean, 2020, we made plans and God just left us right out of our public spaces and into our homes. So I use the spreadsheet by Brock Roberts that you can find online. Yeah, I've heard about that one before. I want to read more translated works. That's a great goal. Yeah, translated. I found I've been reading a lot more translated mystery recently, but I don't know that I always knew that they were translated. It was more just accidental. Like when I started reading it, it was like, oh, this was translated. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, they're really cool. I see them. I feel like I see them on Bookstagram and then on like Etsy stuff a lot, but they're really pretty. My favorite Poirot series. I mean, Poirot is a series. Do we mean favorite Poirot book? That would be Cards on the Table. I want to read more classics next year. I have a bunch, but I've never read them. Yeah. If you read one classic this year, if you read two, you've already doubled it. So, slow and steady, build up that muscle, I think. Yeah, I wouldn't call Victor Hugo a beginner classic just because he does have a lot of sort of like philosophical side tangents in his books. And I feel like he didn't edit a lot, at least of what I've read, but I like municipal infrastructure. I'm very glad about sewers existing, but that's 150 pages too many. Yeah. As far as remembering what you read, do you take notes as I read? I don't. I used to do that more. I do make like marginalia in nonfiction books that I'm reading physically. No, I mean, I can remember some things very specifically about books, but I forget a lot about books. And then I'll start getting in a conversation with people about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's right. So I feel like I store it in my brain until I've like made a review of it, until like it's gone into every video it's going to go into for the year, and then I feel like my brain sort of like moves it out of short-term storage. So yeah, YA middle grade books are a lovely kind of palate cleanse, I think. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think life is too short to feel guilty about reading a book, but I hear I know what you mean, of wanting to mix it up more, but I do think YA middle grade can be a nice palate cleanse for adult readers. I have not heard of that reading tracker. I think I might take a tip from the chat and make a plan to pair more thoughtful reads with some quick fun ones. Yeah, I think I find that to be a really nice pace of reading. What has your highest reading goal been, as in book number wise? I don't really focus on a number year over year. The highest number of books I've ever read in a year was more than 400, but that was because that was the year I was getting ready to do my thesis on romance, and I hadn't read a lot of romance at that point. So I was just like plowing through a bunch of them just to sort of get the lay of the land. So those were books I could read like 2 in a day. Poirot and Me by David Suchet. I have that, and I'm hoping to get to it eventually. I'd love to get some international mystery recommendations in a future video. Okay, yeah, I can take that under advisement. I struggle a lot of times. I'm not wild about the translation, and it diminishes my overall enjoyment of a book, to be totally honest. But there's a lot of them that I'm like, if I put the writing aside, this is still pretty fun. Yeah, those fun scratch off posters. Do I have any plans to bring back author spotlights or spotlights for series? I mean, I kind of do those as I get the urge. There is going to be a series read along next year, so stay tuned. I'm going to put the chat up in Discord sometime here in the next week or two, but there is going to be a series read along next year for the people who have been asking for it. My goal for tracking is to create something I can use for machine learning to predict new favorites. Oh my gosh. Well, Kieran, if you figure that out, let me know, because that sounds amazing. Cards on the Table by Agatha Christie. I do still bullet journal, and I use that more for kind of short-term planning. So like at the beginning, well, I would show you, but there's like some personal information on my current spread, but like I use bullet journaling to come up with the books that I'm hoping to read that month. And then I do find it really helpful to keep track of my arcs. For whatever reason, like visually seeing them written out helps me remember when they're due better. So I use that. And then some of my like year-long reading things of like 12 classics I want to read this year. Like I make spreads for that. But like the really detailed tracking, I don't do in bullet journals because, well, A, you can't search that and make pretty graphs from it easily. So there's that. And B, it's just not. I just don't think it's practical. Hello. I love memoirs. My favorite memoir is probably Hunger by Roxane Gay, followed by My Life in France by Julia Child. This year my goal is 10 and you've read 30. That is fantastic. I'm glad I'm not the only one who forgets a lot about the books I've read. Yeah, exactly. It makes a reread even more fun. Yes, that's like a qualitative goal I have for next year, because I have so enjoyed middle grade this year as a just balm to my soul. Guys, I finished the 4th Percy Jackson book today, and it was just so wonderful. I love Percy Jackson so much. I put this in my mid-month check-in, but I was like, I'm pretty sure that I think Percy Jackson is better than Harry Potter, even aside from like the reasons why Harry Potter is now like a problematic fave. I just think maybe like, I mean, I have to wait and see how the series wraps up, or like this first arc anyway, but I think it's a better macro story. Am I crazy? Anyway, I'm enjoying middle grade. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, that's the thing. I kind of don't remember, and then I get into the sequel and I'm like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so and that's their deal. And oh yeah, I forgot about them. But yeah, okay. I'm vibing with you now, guys. Oh, that's a lovely practice to reread a couple of books from your childhood. That's so nice. Yes, too many books, too little time. Yes, there is a series read along coming. Last year I read 420. Wow, that's great. My oldest bought ebooks. Oh, that's a great goal. I am afraid to try to do that. Is it Peter Winery? Oh, Peter Whimsy. I don't know. You'll have to stay tuned. We'll have to find out. Oh, I'm so glad that was helpful. I'm so glad that was helpful. Would you ever consider doing a map recommendation video, like books set in different continents or countries that you would recommend? Huh. I did an armchair travel video this year. But possibly. That's an interesting idea. That's lovely. Fanfic. I love fan fiction. It's fun. I don't read much of it anymore, but I definitely did when I was younger. I have trouble getting into classics. Until one year I decided to read sci-fi. Yeah, that's a great way. Like I said, you should always go with your genre preferences for these things. Yes, Percy! He's wonderful. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'm excited. I can't wait. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Okay, I'm not crazy, right? I really think Percy Jackson is better than Harry Potter, provisionally. You guys, there's just so many of these characters that are so precious to me at this point. I'm like, fucking Tyson. Love him so much. And Grover, and they're all wonderful. And like Percy and Annabeth are like dancing around each other. And I'm like, oh my gosh, young love. It's just so wonderful. I'm really into it. I'm loving it. Yes, the Heroes of Olympus. Oh, thank you. Yes, I try to wear my Christmas sweaters as much as possible from like the end of Thanksgiving to Christmas because it's just like a very narrow window where I can make it work. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I cannot wait. I also recommend Connor O'Brien. He's my go-to for middle grade recommendations. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, that's so kind. Thank you. I'm reading a Christmas book right now. This is definitely the season. I've got one good Christmas romance going right now, but I've not had great luck with it this year. Oh, that's I totally co-sign this. Yeah, that's one of the series, like, overall, like, worlds that I'm working my way through. I have not heard of that writer. I had so much fun reading Percy Jackson. Oh, I just love all of this. Read a book from the 6 authors who won the Nobel Prize all from Latin America. That is a awesome challenge. Yeah, like I think that's just going back to different tracking or like goals you could set. Like I think picking, reading books from the year you were born, or reading the winners of a prize from one decade or whatever. Like I think that could be an easy way to set, like to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. But to like pick a fun way to do it. Nico, okay, yeah, like I was really proud of him. I was really proud of him in book 4. I think he learned some valuable life lessons, as did we all. I love Tyson so much. When he first showed up, it just honestly melted my heart. I love him so much. Okay. I've only read the first Percy book, but I have the entire first series. Yes. I hope you read them and enjoy them as much as I have. Yeah. OJKR. It was a part of my childhood, but I'm telling you, Frostbite Gaming, if you're looking for some heart-melting middle grade fantasy, it is exceeding my expectations thus far. Oh, Shade Tree Reads. Okay, I am waiting for The Last Olympian from the library. It says I have to wait 3 weeks, and I'm real up in my feelings about it, but I'm being patient and waiting. I am reading the Demigod Files tonight, though. I encourage you to continue. Do I recommend the Ice Planet series for a romance reader trying to get into sci-fi? Yeah, I think that this could be a great way to test the waters of if you like that kind of sci-fi, like with alien species, because there's so many different kinds of sci-fi. So yeah, I think that would be a great way to see, do I like sci-fi that includes space travel, other worlds, aliens. Also, they have, gigantic rabbit vibrator blue peens. So, I mean, that's a fun detail for everyone. Literary fiction awards going forward. I was trying to do that. I'm so glad you were enjoying that. I'm not trying to yuck your yum. I was doing that in my 20s, and I got to the point where I was like, all of these books are so similar. I can't read any more of these. So I think I just got burnt out. Oh my gosh, Annabeth is everything. Yeah. It's she's all the things I love about Hermione, but also some of the things that I have a problem with as an adult looking back on the way Hermione is treated and characterized are not there with Annabeth. So it's great. You do need to read Percy Jackson. It's so great. I am so excited about this. Disney is doing the Percy Jackson series because I heard that the movies sucked ass, but he's actually getting involved with this series. So I will 100% watch that. I will get a Disney Plus subscription just to watch that. Middle grade has me tempted. I find them really cozy and lovely. I can see that it wouldn't be for everyone, but I think because middle grade tends to be so focused on friendships and family, I just find that really lovely and comforting. So I just find it really cozy. A favorite comfort read? I guess I would say Jane Eyre and Pride and Prejudice, because those are the two that I've reread the most. But I have a lot of romances I'll go to for comfort reads. Oh, Okay. I'm going to start winding this down. I'm going to be good. I have a lot of romances I go to for comfort rereading, just because it's like, I know that everything's going to be just fine and lovely. I do Agatha Christie as a comfort reread. Like, I like mysteries as comfort rereads as well. Kind of the same way I used to watch Law and Order ad nauseum as a child. So, how old is the book that's been on your physical TBR the longest? Oh my gosh. So this is so shameful. I figured this out last year that I had a couple that had been on my TBR for like 8 years, which is egregious. And they've only been on there longer at this point because they were supposed to get read this year, and then 2020 happened and it did not happen the way I was hoping it to. So we're coming up on some that have been there for almost a decade. And in my mind, I'm like, I know I need to like kind of fish or cut bait on them, but they still sound good to me. I just haven't been in the right mood for them. It's a whole thing. Okay. I know you're not judging me. I'm judging myself. Yes, I am enjoying that. I just got the third book out from the library, so that is going to be my next audiobook. Yes. I'm glad that my new, instead of just converting people to Murderbot, now I'm converting people to Ice Planet Barbarians. Hello, Rachel. I don't know. I would guess probably about 150. I think each shelf has roughly 30 books on it, and no, each shelf has roughly 30. There's 6, so that's like 180. A lot, too many. Shh, don't tell. You can see, I just put up all the books on my physical TBR video if you're interested in seeing what they all are. Yes, I'm glad. Glad this is my new legacy on top of Murderbot, and Agatha Christie is also the Ice Planet Barbarians. Yes, the podcast is great. Yes, it's like my not so secret dream to be on that podcast because I really want to talk about Ariana with someone. It is really good. Okay. Yeah, those are probably my comfort reads. That's what I heard, so I'm really hoping that this Disney Plus series is going to be better. Yeah, there's some really good romance podcasts at this point. I like David Foster Wallace's nonfiction, but I tried Infinite Jest and couldn't get into it. I don't know if I was in the right mood, and I have it as an ebook and not a physical book, and I wonder if I would like it better with a physical book so I could go with the footnotes a little easier, but there we go. To Kindle Unlimited. Well, you can usually get Kindle Unlimited as a like 99-cent deal for a trial period, and then you could just binge and read it on the app. Just saying. Thank you. Oh yes, thank you, Kay, for reminding me. I need to start piecing out. My favorite one is Fated Mates for sure, but I also really like Learning the Tropes. I really like the Ice Planet Barbarian podcast. I've dipped my toes in with Heaving Bosoms. I haven't fully gotten on that train. And there's a couple of others I don't even remember. I like Read Me Romance if you want like short, smutty fiction podcast. That's fun. Yes. Fated Mates is definitely my favorite. Yeah, that's what I think. So at some point, if I decide I'm going to take the plunge with Infinite Jest, like for real, that's what I'll do. Yes, it did. Okay, so basically, start wrapping up my, oh yeah, Read Me Romance. Yes, it's so good. Happy holidays. Yeah. Yeah, there's always good KU trials. I think that goals are not for everyone, but I do think that if you have something that you either need, that if you are like me and can be trained to turn things into a game and therefore to get them done easier, I think they can be helpful if you are trying to either eat your veggies and have something that's like, it's important to me to start to like move in this direction with my reading. Good example will be what we talk about on Thursday, which I really encourage everyone to come to. Or if you want to like treat yourself and like need some permission to make space for yourself to do that, I think goals can be helpful. I have a lot of fun. I really enjoy checking things off the to-do list. So like it feeds that piece of my spirit. And yeah, I encourage people to try setting some reading goals for themselves if they're open to it and see if it can be for them or not. So those are my concluding thoughts. Thank you all so much for joining. Oh, wow. Okay. They had some different opinions to me. So I think that may have just like, I may have just not heard great episodes from them, but I will keep trying. Okay. Happy holidays, everyone. Yes. Happy holidays. Keep your eyes open. I think I may try to do a live stream on New Year's Day. We'll see. But just get excited. There's lists like whoa coming. They are starting up in earnest. Oh, yay. I hope you enjoyed it. Happy holidays, everyone. Have a great night. Stay safe. Yes. And we will talk in the new year. Okay. Bye, guys.